So good morning again, everyone, and welcome to our Friday. So I'd like to say a few words today about the 8 path factors, which I'm constantly talking about. And this time focusing on the last of the 8, the sort of the ultimate, the sort of culmination of the Eightfold Path, which is Samma Samadhi, right stillness, right concentration, right focus. And all the other path factors lead up to and enable the development of Samma Samadhi. And so, just to recap, we need to have a certain degree of wisdom to know how to practice right view, right intention. And then we develop the goodness, the freedom from remorse that we can experience through practicing sila, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And with the degree of serenity and well-being, the inner resources, the inner happiness that are the result of practicing a life that's very virtuous and developing virtue and kind of working on how to increasingly avoid harm and be of benefit to ourselves and others. Then with that kind of serenity, that kind of groundedness and peacefulness, we can start to purify the heart. We can start to develop the other 3 path factors, the meditation factors, not just meditating when we sit for our daily practice, sitting practice or walking practice, but meditation throughout our lives, developing right effort, right mindfulness, and right stillness. And these last 3, they kind of really work together. And I spoke last time about the balance between energy, effort, and right stillness, right concentration, and how they really sort of need to balance one another out to really promote mindfulness. So it's really beautiful to me, the interplay of all these different path factors, and how we can really review again and again our situation here and now and just see, which path factors do I need to work on right now? What can I develop right now? And, when we come to meditation practice, like we've just been doing, this is a time to develop these last 3 factors: stillness, energy, effort, and mindfulness. Most particularly, this is the time for these. But, throughout the day also, we want to be living a mindful life and have a sense of directing our energy in the right ways, which is right effort, and a sense of peace, a sense of calm. And yeah, for many of us, I'm sure, when it comes to meditation time, this is our time to relax and to experience some quiet, some stillness, and even some peace. And so I'm going to speak a bit now about the aspects of Samma Samadhi that the Buddha taught. He really explained, what the results are of meditation practice, of a mind that's free from obstructions, a mind that's clear and able to focus. It's very natural for our minds, when we're not agitated and we're not caught up in some sort of defilement or other, it's very natural for our minds to be extremely quiet, to move towards quietude, silence, and stillness. Is our natural state. We don't always experience that. We don't necessarily know that, but if we practice according to the Buddha's teachings, we start to get the taste of this kind of stillness, this kind of peacefulness. And so the Buddha described how that happens. And I'm sure that as I'm speaking, you will relate to what I'm saying. You will have had experiences that are this ineffable taste of peace that really gives us a great boost on the path of practice. And for some people, you might experience just once or twice, occasionally, rarely, even just once, a real quietness of mind, when the mind just is silent. And this can inform us for years together. One experience like that, and it really helps to set us on the path and to help us to really commit to the spiritual life. So, but my sense is that this kind of stillness, this kind of peace, is something we can cultivate on a daily basis, here and now. And so the Buddha described a mind in meditation where, first of all, we sit and we come into the body, come back to the body, come back to the breath. Pay attention to what we can know right now. And we start to relax. We start to narrow down our focus of attention. So the sense doors are given less importance. We generally close our eyes, don't we? And we're generally, listening to sounds, but we're not giving importance to the sounds around us. We're not eating, so there's no taste or smell of great significance going on. And the touch, well, we're just sitting, we're on our own. It's good not to touch other people when we're meditating, and to be somewhere, if we can, fairly solitary, or with like-minded friends, sitting quietly. So all the five senses that I've just mentioned are kind of allowed to just subside, and we're not giving importance to the input anymore. That's meditation, isn't it? And then we sit and we're with the body and we're with the mind. And the mind sense door is still operating. So there will be experiences of thinking, emotion, mind states, and we get to investigate those, don't we? So we get to see what's actually going on here. When everything else is stopped, I'm not doing anything, I'm just here, and there's minimal distraction around me. Okay, what's going on? And then we discover, this is how I'm feeling right now. Different mind states can arise and pass or reveal themselves as having been there all along. Oh, I'm actually feeling really miserable. I'm really upset about this or that, and it comes into the mind. Memories, issues that we have, isn't it? We start to notice what is actually the mind, let's say, circling around. What is the mind obsessed with? What kind of things are playing on my mind at this time? And they will reveal themselves. When we pay attention to the body, the breath, the feelings in the body, then we're allowing the mind to reveal itself, to show us what is the mind state. And we can watch the thinking process playing out. And rather than being in it and identifying with it and sort of rolling around with it, we're actually observing it. So we start to get to know, okay, this is the situation. And we can start doing hindrance spotting. And I've talked about the hindrances, and you know about the hindrances. So we're looking out to notice when there's wanting, not wanting, when there's sleepiness, when there's restlessness, or when there's doubt. And we can see, start to get a handle on these kind of obstructions to peace, the things that get in the way of quietude, of the mind that can simply relax. So these things will come up for us. Yeah, so we just notice them, working with them, applying the remedies that I've discussed in previous talks. And so we're really clearing the clutter of the mind as we meditate. And it's a very dynamic process, isn't it? I mean, we might sit and we might look as if butter wouldn't melt in our mouths, as they say. We might look completely peaceful and calm and still, but we know that oftentimes there's an awful lot going on inside, and it's really very dynamic. It's very active, the process. When we really apply ourselves and try to maintain some kind of object of meditation, this is almost like an invitation. We say an invitation to Mara, you know, it's an invitation for the mind to reveal itself, and it will throw up all the obstacles that it has at its disposal. And our job is to sit with that, just like the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, you know, sitting on that night he became the Buddha, and all the hordes of Mara assaulting him mentally, just to stay steady, to stay still with that. So, you know, this is, some people say, oh, I had a terrible meditation. Oh, I was so restless and upset. And when people say that, I think, well, no, you had a really good meditation, because you were working with all these hindrances and you stayed sitting, you know, you were there for that. Because when we're present, then things can release. But in order to release and free themselves, these dharmas, all these dharmas of hindrances and mind states and endless mental complexity, you know, they need to release themselves, to reveal themselves in order to find their peace, you know. So it's this process, not to make a problem out of all these hindrances, rather to just welcome them and be with them, and recognize that every moment we're doing this in our meditation practice, we are freeing up. Things are moving on, things are clearing, you know, we're cleaning up the temple. We've got the broom out, you know, or the Hoover nowadays, got the Hoover out, and we're cleaning up with our mindfulness, with our right effort, and with our right samadhi. So again and again, developing right samadhi then is to keep coming back to the body, coming back to body awareness, coming back to breath awareness. Find a resort within the body, within the breath, that you can attend to. And all of this mental resolution, shall we say, can be doing its job. It naturally happens. The mind will also settle down. The mind will also relax. And as we spot hindrances and watch them arising and passing away, arising and passing away, there may be the occasional moments when there's no activity going on. The mind is quiet. Oh, peace, moments of peace. And then perhaps another wave of a memory of some sort, or a conundrum that the mind is grappling with, may come up again. And again, we just keep returning to the body, to the breath. And again, we may start to notice the waves rising and passing away, and then peace again. Another little interlude, a pause in the proceedings. And this can start to happen again and again for us in our practice. And for, you know, some people, it can be an extensive experience of sitting really in silence. Silent body, silent mind, quiet, peaceful. And the Buddha described when we have the opportunity to experience peace in our practice, which if you haven't experienced a quiet mind ever, you surely will if you continue to practice meditation and follow the Eightfold Path as best we can. Samma Samadhi will develop. The Buddha said there are various things we can notice about right concentration. Like there are various factors that become clear to us. So as we're meditating and we're applying our effort to maintain some kind of body or breath awareness, we start to notice the mind yes, it has a quality of, it can actually hone in on an object. It can really beat at an object again and again, just coming close, coming close. And there's a kind of quality of coming and going that we start to notice. The Buddha called it Vitakka Vichara. These two aspects, it's a bit like the mind is a bit like Vitakka, this quality of coming to the object. So we intend, I'm going to watch the breath now, I'm going to focus on the belly. Okay, so there's an intentionality and there's this movement. And so the mind will hit on the object. And then there's another quality, which is called the vichara, which is the quality of mind that it will kind of move away from that object because there's a wobble, there's an instability in the mind, quite naturally. We can't immediately focus on one thing and stay there without pause, without any fluctuation whatsoever. No, the quality of the mind is that it's always fluctuating, it's wobbling, it's shaking. And so what we can notice is there's the honing in on the object, and then there's the mind that kind of, the aspect of attention that kind of circles around the object is coming and going. There's a movement, there's a subtle vibration around the object. And one way of understanding this process, which we can experience, but we don't necessarily recognize it until it's pointed out to us. There's the mind that hits on the object. So it's doing this. And there's the mind that's listening to the reverberation itself even. So we have these two aspects. As our mind focuses, there's the coming to the object, and there's the wobbling, moving, reverberating around the object. Vitakka Vichara. And we can really observe this if we pay attention. We can see how initially we start to try and focus on an object, and the mind will come and go in a big way. We'll be trying to focus, and then the mind will go off into some sort of thinking, and we're completely gone. We're not circling the object. We've gone somewhere else altogether. And then we come back, and we keep coming back. And as we continue to practice and focus in on our object of meditation, let's say the breath, we can notice that the mind does become more settled. So it's more drawn into the object. This is Vitakka. We have the ability to really get right in there. And then we can start to see how we're not leaving the object so much. The hindrances are settling down. We're not getting distracted in a big way, but the mind itself is not used to focusing, really intently focusing on an object. So it will come and go, but in a smaller way, in a more subtle way. And all the time we're developing this stillness. And as we develop the stillness more and more, we can come into the object, and we can see how the wobble or the shake or the fluctuation around the object becomes less and less and less. The Buddha described this process as something that's very satisfying for us. It's very comfortable for us. It feels right. It feels good. It feels like we're doing something that's really beneficial for the mind, for the heart. He said it's a bit like the simile of the day was a bath attendant has some powdered soap. In those days, I guess they used soap powder like we use for washing clothes, and they would use that for washing the body as well. They would make their own soap out of, you'd have the bath powder, and the bath attendant would add water, just drop by drop, sprinkling water onto the powder. And then he would knead the powder into a ball of soap. So the simile the Buddha gave for this experience is like, there's movement in it, You know, it's like the hand that's kneading the soap powder and the water to create the ball of soap. But it's a very lovely experience. He said you can almost imagine if you're some of that soap powder, if you're grains of soap powder and someone sprinkles water, how cooling, how refreshing. And then you're kneaded together with all the other grains of soap to create this lovely soap ball. The sense of a soap ball, it's a bit like a sponge. It's full of air, it's full of movement, it's full of bubbles. So there's a lightness to the quality in this description for me. There's a lightness and there's a real sense of nourishment, or you could say refreshment, like having a really good long drink when you're very thirsty, a bit like that. So this is a simile I've often considered, and this is why I have this sense around it. The sense around it is, and the sense around the experience of a mind that's coming to a more and more focused, peaceful space or place, is a feeling of great well-being, relaxation. As if we're full of, we've had a good drink and we're full of the energy of that lovely water, clear water filling the body. So this is a stage in the development of peacefulness, Samma Samadhi, the development of right stillness. And as we continue to meditate, if we have the opportunity to just observe that process of hitting on the object of meditation and settling gradually on that object, the mind that settles and stills, becomes more and more focused and clear, where the hindrances are really off to the side somewhere. They're just not manifesting anymore. The thoughts have gone quiet. The movie of the mind has kind of come to an end, and there's a stillness. Then this gradually, steadily grows. And the feeling in the body that can come is one of real bliss, real rapture, called piti. And this is the third factor that the Buddha described as an aspect of Samma Samadhi. Piti. Piti means rapture, a sense of great bliss, and it's felt in the body as well as the mind. The Buddha described it as like waves of rapture that kind of sweep over the body. And he gave a simile. Imagine a pond of clear water, and it's completely still. And there's no water coming in from any direction. There's no streams coming into this pond of water. No, that's not where it comes from. It's actually coming from an underground spring. So there's a cool current of water coming from underneath the pond, from underground, and it's filling this pond, slowly sort of perfusing the entire body of water. And there's an absolute stillness and clarity in that water. And he said, this is the kind of experience of piti. It's like a kind of fountain of well-being that comes from within as the mind settles further. And we can really start to let go, feel quite removed in a way from all the mental agitation that's our normal experience in everyday life. And if we meditate, if we, first of all, practice all the path factors, live the good life, give time for meditation, then we will experience this kind of peace, this kind of stillness. And then going further, there's a fourth factor the Buddha talked about. It's quite interesting. One can realize as one is sort of really kind of experiencing this rapturous, blissful feeling in the body and mind, one can start to detect, if we just keep practicing with that, one can detect a kind of agitation in that. It's a bit too intense. It's a bit too strong. We want more peace. The mind will naturally inclined to something more peaceful. And the Buddha called this Sukkah. This is it means happiness, means bliss, but it's something different from piti, from rapture. It's a much more calm, quiet, contented kind of a peacefulness. The Buddha said it's as if in that pond of water, there's a lotus flower. And the lotus, as we know, its roots are in the water. It's nourished by the water and it rises out of the water. The Buddha said it's as if our mind, our body, is like a lotus flower, lotus root and flower. And the water's coming in from below and it actually fills the entire organism of this lotus flower. So it's interesting to me because the simile here is very similar to the simile for piti, which is the lake with the underground spring nourishing it. Now it's kind of focused right into just one lotus flower in that lake. And that's just what it's like. The attention, as we continue to pay attention, focus on our object of meditation, the attention just comes in and in and in, and it kind of distills right in to a very peaceful, very still point. And this quality of Sukkah then, the mind will naturally let go of the intensity of rapture and rest more, relax more in the stillness of this happy, contented, blissful feeling. The mind is becoming quieter and quieter, more and more still. And as we continue in this practice, the fifth factor becomes, these factors have always all been there, I just should say. These 5 factors of vitakka, vichara, the mind that can focus, the mind that can circle around an object and steadily come closer, the mind that can experience rapture, the mind that can experience peace. And the last factor, which I'll mention in a moment, all these are always present in the mind, but they are obscured by all the other things that are going on in our everyday lives. You know, all the input of the 6 sense doors, all the things we're taking in, all the information, the thoughts, the history, the past, the future, all our mental activity, just overlays all these factors. These factors are quiet, they are unobtrusive, and they're mostly invisible for us. One of my favorite quotes, "Be still and know that I am God." I love that. Of course, it's Christian, but it's saying the same thing. God is within, you know, Nibbana is accessible to us. Nibbana is the 6th of the 6 elements. It's always present, but we fail to notice it. That's all. We fail to notice because there's so much going on the surface. You know, so in the same way, if we're still, we can start to experience the truth of the capacity or the natural resting state, I would say, of our own minds, of this mind. Of course, they're not our own minds. And as we develop these qualities, these underlying qualities, these peaceful qualities, of course, it's obvious to us then that this is not my mind. This is just the way it is. So there's nothing personal about these experiences. So this helps us enormously to recognize the truth of anatta, of not self. So anyway, the 5th factor that the Buddha described endlessly in the suttas to us, is called ekaggata. Eka is one, gata is going or gone. So it's the mind that's gone to the one, the mind that's at oneness, that's united, where all the disparate sort of strands are yoked together, one pointedness. And this is the result of developing Samma Samadhi, right concentration, right focus, right stillness. We have a mind that's capable of completely focusing without any ripple, without any distraction, without any deviation from its object whatsoever. And when this quality starts to manifest, when all the others have passed away, so we come to a point where even the Sukkah, the pleasure, the peace, the happiness, is actually something we want to let go of, because that too has a kind of movement to it. Thinking in terms of movement, the first simile for Vitaka Vichara, the kneading of the ball of soap, there's a lot of movement in that. The second simile, the lake with an underground spring that's welling up, filling it with water, there's movement there. It's a more peaceful kind of a movement, but there's still movement. The lotus flower, the simile for Sukkah, with just a little bit of water coming in at the roots and filling the entire flower, the entire organism. Less movement, but there's still a little bit of movement there. And finally, the mind just doesn't incline towards any kind of movement at all. And it comes to this place of one-pointedness, complete stillness, nothing moving. The Buddha compared this to, he said, it's like a person who's sitting in meditation, covered in a white sheet from head to toe, so that there's no part of the body that's not covered in this white sheet. I find that a very interesting simile. It took me a while to really appreciate that this is a step in the right direction. All these beautiful similes of lotuses and ponds. Oh, how lovely. Oh, somebody with a sheet over them. It's not quite as, I don't know, it just doesn't seem quite as attractive somehow. But actually, I think the point of this is that there's nothing moving. And that's how it is. That's how the mind will incline when we develop right samadhi, right stillness. It's like the mind doesn't actually want to move. The mind actually really, quite naturally, if we allow ourselves to experience this, is quite naturally extremely still, silent, equanimous. And the factor here is that of also equanimity, one-pointedness, leads to a subjective experience of unshakability. And when the mind is able to settle in this way, through our meditation practice and through our good life, practicing the Buddhist path, or any other person who's practicing a good life and has the wisdom to be able to meditate in this way, what we recognize is that this body, the feelings in the body itself, these are actually like a kind of, like an item of clothing that we put on to, cover ourselves. It's like this is the vehicle, the body and the feelings in the body are like our earthly vehicle that we're carrying around at this time. And we can see how the mind actually can transcend this physical experience, and the body awareness simply falls away. Naturally, because the body is a constant source of movement, activity. There's always something going on. There's so much going on in the body. And through the practice, which is so valuable for us, the practice of focusing on just one object of meditation, we can see how the mind is actually quite free of the body. There's actually the connection between them is a tenuous one, and we can experience that, letting go of the body, letting go of the sense doors, letting go of being embodied. And this is quite a remarkable experience for people when they have had this experience, or they have this experience. It really helps enormously with right view, with understanding what is the reality here. And we start to recognize that this body is like a changeable, recyclable, transitory thing that we're in a way sort of using, in a way the mind has latched onto, and it can be let go of. And it's not that we can let go of the body and that's the end of it, not at all. And this right concentration does not necessarily purify the mind. It's an opportunity to see a little bit more deeply what is real and what is our wise relationship to the body. How can we wisely relate to this experience of embodiment? And having experienced these kind of states of what we call jhana, like degrees of focus of the mind, when we experience these things in meditation, we then find ourselves coming back to the gamut of experiences that we normally are bearing with. All the thoughts, the sights, the sounds, the taste, the touches, and so forth. The meditation gong goes, we have to get up. We can't just stay in these kind of states of focused and still mind. But having had those kind of experiences, we can then allow them to inform our wisdom, our view, allow them to kind of permeate the understanding of reality, and to recognize again and again that yes, coming back to this worldly experience of body and mind, constant change is really apparent to me now. I can see that from the stillness perspective, what I'm looking at, what I'm dealing with, is a constant kind of endless interchange of energies, of experiences, of processes. And I can watch that more easily because I've had a realization that there's something that's beyond that. There's a mind that can be completely still, even within and amongst all the goings on in my everyday life. There's a part of the mind that can be resting in stillness. And I can access that as I continue to practice. I can come back to that more and more easily. I can see through the hindrances more and more quickly. And I can come back to this place of stillness, of quietude, and really relax, really find peace, really find this like wonderful nourishment, this great drink, this a thirsty mind gets its beautiful refreshment. And meditation becomes for us, as I'm sure many of you know, it becomes a source of real relaxation, real resourcing, the chance to process things, let go of things, let go of worldly cares, and just drop it all and rest, truly rest. And so if what I'm saying makes any sense to you, that's wonderful. If what I'm saying seems really foreign to you and it's not something that you can relate to very easily, it's okay. I would say consider these teachings, because the Buddha spoke about these experiences again and again in the suttas. And whenever he spoke of right samadhi, Samma Samadhi, right focus, right stillness, this is what he's talking about. He's talking about this potential we have. And we all have this ability, given time, given attention. And as I said at the beginning, if we really cultivate, really work on all the different aspects of the Eightfold Path, then we're going to be supporting and enhancing and enabling Samma Samadhi to develop. And I think that's probably enough on that from me at this point. Ewa.
Andamayanda Makitaya Sadu Karam Dadamase Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu.
So thank you for your patient listening. And we've got time. We've got a quarter of an hour. So to see if there's any, first of all, see if there's any comments, questions, reflections. Sanghamitta has something for us. And we've got a sound system now. We've got a microphone. We're going to try using that. Okay, see if you can hear Sanghamita.
So this is referring to when you talked about allowing whatever is there to just be there and watch it, have it stay in the sun and then disappear. I just wanted to clarify if that is just referring to what you're experiencing in the body and not thoughts. My understanding is that we use the right effort if thoughts arise to let them go, and what we're sitting with is just the physical feelings or the physical component of the emotions, and it's not the thoughts. If you could clarify, please.
Thank you, Bro. Okay, first of all, did you all hear that? Yes. Okay, great. Yeah, so it's a very good question. I think my understanding is that this kind of openness, receptivity, welcoming of experience when we meditate is for any kind of experience whatsoever. So I think it's really valuable to focus on the body, the breath, the feelings in the body, just because they don't have a deceptive nature. They're very grounding. We can anchor our attention in the body, and it's true to an extent. It's what it is. The mind is quite different in this regard because it has a deceptive nature. So the reason I say that, consider the source of all suffering is ignorance. There is a degree of ignorance in the mind, which manifests as confusion or wanting or not wanting. So we'll have an experience where the mind will latch onto things or push things away. This is due to ignorance. So the mind is, we're dealing with a mind that we cannot completely trust. So whatever thoughts, mind states, moods, emotions we experience, we really, it's quite challenging if we try to rest in those or try to simply observe them without this anchoring in the body and in feeling what we feel. So to put it a different way, it's really helpful in our meditation to, when thoughts arise and mind states arise and emotions arise, to redirect the energy and see what's happening in the body. Come back to the body again and again, because there we'll get clarity. There'll be a sense of clarity, and there's a sense of you feel what you feel and you notice the feelings changing and moving, and they surely pass at some point. Things come and go. So we can work through or process all the mental phenomena that arise if we kind of root our attention in the body. But to come back to what you were saying, whatever arises it's like it has to have its day in the sun. As you said, give it its day in the sun. Whether it's body feelings, body awareness, things going on within the physical realm, or mental phenomena arising and passing. Just this sense of not getting involved, but simply observing. And as we pay attention in our meditation practice, this part of the mind that's observing Dhamma becomes stronger and stronger. And we can identify with that in a skillful way more and more, so that we're really just, it's the same kind of quality of attention to whatever of the four, say, satipatthanas are playing out in any moment. Does that answer your question? Do you want to say more? Back to Sanghamita.
So I think this is we were talking the other day about students of Ajahn Sumedho and Ajahn Sona and differences. And I would say that what I've observed over the years, because we've had several teachers who've studied under Ajahn Sumedho, that there's this emphasis on what you just said, being open and watching whatever it is that arises. Whereas Ajahn Sona tends to emphasize, I think that everybody is talking about the same whole picture, but it's just where does the emphasis go? And I would say that his emphasis goes on using right effort to let go of the thoughts. Now, like you said, if a thought arises, come back to the body. So to me, that's just exactly what Ajahn Sona is saying. So it's a bit confusing when you're saying, let it have its day in the sun, because if you immediately redirect your attention, when a thought arises to, well, what's that causing to arise in the body? What kind of sensation or experience? And what my own experience is, as soon as I redirect my mind, well, the thought's gone, because I really can only hold one thing in my attention. So if I redirect to my body to see, well, what did that thought trigger off in my body? As soon as I experience my body, that particular thought is gone. I mean, maybe not for long. There's that wobble back and forth where you get pulled to the thought, then you come back to the body, you get pulled to the thought. But it's still, when I come to the body, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my feeling is, I think the two sets of teachers are saying the same thing, but there's just this difference in emphasis. That's my own conclusion listening to this. But anyway, if you want to say a few more words.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for, that's really great, isn't it? So it's like really exploring this, because it's important for you. You want to put together, you want to integrate. You hear a teaching over here, you hear a teaching over there. You respect the teachers and you want to understand how these teachings actually are, both true, and how can they sort of come together? How can they unify? And I think they are saying the same thing. People have slightly different approaches. It's always helpful, I would say, to go back to the words of the Buddha. So if in doubt, go back to the suttas, have a look, study the suttas. I would put them beyond all teachers and teachings, because that's the closest we've got, to the words of the Buddha. And I think certainly, large chunks of the Pali Canon, the suttas in the Pali Canon, you can say, yeah, that's probably pretty close to what the Buddha was saying. So I would always go back again and again to the suttas. That's one thing. But yes, I think they're saying the same things. My sense is that, one thing I can say that's maybe slightly different from what you're describing is when thoughts are coming into the mind and there's a redirecting of attention again and again, coming back to the body, coming back to the breath. I don't think you're neglecting that thought. You're not cutting off or suppressing, because when we're meditating, things are bubbling up all the time. We're allowing the mind its space. We really are. What gives the mind its space is when we direct our attention elsewhere. It's a funny thing. Like the body, if we pay attention to the body, there's a kind of energizing of the body. There's a pleasure in that in and of itself, because the body seems to really benefit from attention. When we pay attention to the body, it will tend to relax and find its center of gravity and find a good posture. It will do all those things with attention. Attention nourishes the body. But I would say, interestingly, and I'm speaking from my own experience here, that paying attention to the mind, to the thinking process particularly, doesn't tend to nourish at all. No, actually, what really seems to nourish the mind's purification process is to not pay attention to it. And I think that's because the quality of attention that we have is always going to be tinged with a little bit of ignorance. So when you have thoughts arising and you redirect your attention to the body, you're still present. There's still space. The mind can still unravel and disentangle and purify itself. You don't need to know what's going on there. I don't think you've cut off your thinking. You've just deepened your awareness when you move from, it's almost like For me, it's like the mind and body, you can say it's a whole experience is the four satipatthanas, is body, feelings, mind states, and thoughts. That's our whole experience. Consider it as like an ocean. This is the ocean of experience that we're swimming in. When we pay attention to the body and the breath, it's like we're diving deep in that ocean. We're right underneath. We're under the water there. We're in the subconscious, if you like. We're really present to the mind. It's a deeper level. And when we pay attention to thinking, it's like we come up on the surface and it's all choppy up there. There's lots of waves. There's lots of movement. There's loads of activity. It's also Dhamma. It's also the reality of our experience. But when we spend our time there, when we put our attention there, we're going to find agitation, movement, more movement. The mind is incredibly capable, isn't it, of darting from here to there. The monkey, jumping from branch to branch. We can be on Mars in 1 second, and the next second we're, remembering some news article that we read this morning. It's incredible, the movement of the mind. So to pay attention to the thinking process is going to be very difficult, to maintain peacefulness, to maintain a sense of groundedness, to maintain our mindfulness. So to come back to the body, it's like, okay, it's all still going on, exactly the same ocean, but we're choosing to sort of submerge a bit deeper. And it's quieter there. It's more peaceful. We're in the same ocean. It's the same things are going on. So we're not losing or gaining through moving our attention. There's so much going on that we are not aware of. We don't need to be aware of it, but we can be very sure that when we practice meditation, and particularly when we develop Samma Samadhi, we're enabling, we're really enabling. We're not making things happen. It's like, as the Christians would say, it's like we're allowing the grace of God to come in. We're allowing the natural inclination of the mind. The mind inclines towards Nibbana, the Buddha told us again and again, in many different similes. Our mind is naturally going to incline towards peace, towards stillness, towards freedom from suffering. The uprooting of the defilements is going to happen. We don't have to literally get our gardening gloves on and root out those defilements ourselves, each and every one of them, knowing exactly what we're doing. It doesn't quite work like that. It's more like we make the space and the process will do itself. And, our understanding of it grows as we continue to practice, but we don't need to try to control the process, So what you're describing, the movement away from a thought and coming back to the body, you're actually allowing that mental process to continue more easily than if you stayed with the thinking. Does that make sense? Back to Sanghamita.
So I think what it boils down to is the instructions are the same. I mean, maybe the way you're, I don't know if the way different teachers are looking at it is different. But basically the instruction is focus on the body, don't focus on the thoughts. And so Ajahn Sona would just say, that's the right effort, just doing that gentle, non-judgmental movement away from the mind to the body. It's what Thich Nhat Hanh talked about in his holding technique. I think it's what the Buddha talks about in the Jima 19 or 20 when he talks about the 5 ways to let go of thoughts. So I think this is very consonant with the suttas. So anyway, you're just confirming to me that the instructions from both sides, both sets of teachers are the same. It's just sort of said in slightly different ways, but it's the same way. But my concern sometimes with when it's not emphasized that it's coming back to the body, that people might get confused and think, oh, I'm supposed to sit and think thoughts, because certainly thinking thoughts, in my experience, just fuels the fire and just digs you in deeper with dukkha.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Oops. Yeah, thank you, Sangamitra. I think that's so true. Yeah. It's tricky to jump in a way, to focusing attention on the mind and mind states. It's not impossible, and I think it's something one can develop, but definitely never to lose the awareness of the body until the mind becomes so still that, as I was describing, the mind simply lets go of the body. But until that time, to really root the attention in the body, and those kind of experiences of transcending or letting go of the body altogether are not something to pursue as a practice for liberation. Actually, the liberation, the purification of this heart-mind happens through the awareness of the four satipatthanas, not to try to escape this body. We're not developing right stillness in order to let go of the body, in order to pursue the practice of the falling away of the body awareness. No, it's a very peaceful state. It's very lovely, but it's something we always want to remember, to redirect the mind and to come back to body awareness. And of course, life does that for us anyway, because we can't sit and meditate all day long, every day, even monks and nuns, as much as they might like to. It's better not to. It's better not to, because we have a body. We have a life. We need to interact with others. We need to develop the other path factors. And so body awareness is really essential, I would say, in our day-to-day life, in our life of practice. And most teachers will, as you said, Sangamitra, encourage the development of that. And there are many suttas where the Buddha is encouraging the development of body awareness as a priority. And when he describes the jhanas, these concentrated mind states, which he does again and again, the reason he describes them is because they happen, because this is what happens when we meditate, and the mind becomes very still. We need to know that. We need to know how it works, and we need to then know how to direct the mind when we have these kind of experiences. And the way to do that is to keep coming back, keep coming home to the body. Because it's a bit like our filing cabinet, isn't it? It's like the repository of all the karma, actually. All the mind states are here. That's why when we are noticing the mind is paying attention to thinking and we bring it back to the body, we're not losing the thought, because there's the very clear connection between mind and body that's going on all the time for us. That every thought there will be a physical response, a physical mirroring of that. There'll be sensations in the body to observe in relation to whatever's going on in the mind. So it's just so much easier for us to come home to the body and experience that, to see that. And it really is, for me, like diving into the ocean, because it's like we cut to the chase when we pay attention to the body. We really get to look at the mind in a deeper way, with more clarity. We're more resourced in our investigation when we have this anchoring in the body. So I'm really glad you brought that up. And it's a great thing to investigate and explore together. So many words. It's funny to me, we have so many words. I said so many words today, but the reality is, of course, all of this is completely beyond the verbal. It's beyond words, isn't it? We're talking about experiences that cannot be compartmentalized actually into words. But the Buddha did his very best, and we're so fortunate that he was able to actually vocalize these experiences for us in such a brilliant way, and often with the use of similes that help us, because they kind of transcend that the verbal formation as well. So these images are really valuable. But let's practice, let's just go beyond all the words, contemplate the words, and then let the words go and come back to the reality again and again, this body, this mind, this heart. So thank you all. We're a little bit over time, so I think we better just say bye-bye, and so you can do the things you need to do. Thank you for being with us. Thank you all.